It was a bright morning on the coast of Goa. The sun sparkled on the water like diamonds. Tourists walked along the beach laughing and taking pictures. But in one corner, away from the crowd, a small boy played alone near the rocks. His name was Arav, only 8 years old. He was the son of Mr. Viren, one of the richest businessmen in the country. The family was staying at a luxury beach resort for a short vacation. But like always, Mr. Viren was busy on his phone, talking business. His wife Mira was resting inside the resort room. She had a headache and needed sleep, so Arav was left on his own. Again. He didn't mind at first. The sea was exciting. The waves rushed in and out, and he had brought his favorite toy, a small red plastic boat. He placed it in the water, laughed and ran along the edge as the boat floated. Nearby, an old fisherman named Dadu Ram sat on the rocks, watching quietly. He often saw children play near the sea, but something about this boy felt different. He looked lonely. He looked like he just wanted someone to play with him. Arav's laughter echoed across the waves. He bent down to pick up a shell, then ran after his boat again. The fisherman smiled. But then, in just a few short minutes, everything changed. The red boat floated further out. Arav ran after it, stepping on wet rocks, moving closer to the edge. Then silence. No splash. No scream. No sound. The fisherman blinked. Arav was gone. He stood up, alarmed, scanning the water, the rocks, the sand. "Boy!" he shouted. "Little boy!" But the boy had vanished. Dadu Ram rushed toward the resort and shouted for help. The beach security guard was the first to hear him. Within minutes, panic spread across the hotel. Mr. Viren rushed out, still holding his phone, his face pale. "What do you mean he's gone? He was just here," he shouted. The guards, hotel staff, and some local fishermen began searching the area. They looked behind the rocks, inside the jungle path, under every bush and tree. Nothing. They asked other tourists. A couple had seen the boy playing alone, and then nothing. The sun began to set, painting the sky in orange and red. Fear grew in every heart. Just as the sky turned dark, a hotel worker called out, "Sir, something's floating." They all ran to the edge of the water. A small red object slowly washed ashore with the waves. It was Arav's toy boat, broken in half. Mr. Viren fell to his knees. That night was full of chaos. The police were called. Flashlights moved in every direction. Drones flew above the beach. Dogs sniffed every trail. But there were no footprints on the wet sand. No sign of struggle. Just a toy boat and a missing boy. Inside the resort, Mira sat frozen. Her eyes stared blankly at the door, waiting for her son to return. She didn't say a word. Not even a tear. Mr. Viren couldn't sit still. He shouted at the police, offered money to anyone who could find Arav. "My son is not dead," he screamed. "Find him. He's not in the sea. He's somewhere out there." But he was not sure if he believed his own words. At 3 a.m., the fisherman Dadu Ram sat near the rocks again. He had lived by the sea for 40 years. And that night something felt wrong. The sea was too quiet. The air was too still. He whispered to himself, "This wasn't the sea. This was something else." Behind him, a soft sound came from the jungle. Path, leaves rustling, like someone walking barefoot. He turned quickly, but saw no one, just darkness and a chill in the wind. That was the last night anyone saw signs of Arav. No ransom call, no note, no demand, just silence, and the sound of waves crashing as if trying to return something that had already been taken. The sun was setting, and the waves gently touched the shore. But Arav was nowhere to be seen. Mr. Viren stood near. The rocks, panic spreading across his face. "Where is he?" he shouted at the guards. His wife Mira came running from the resort, her eyes wide with fear. "Where is Arav? Tell me this is a joke." But it wasn't. The local police were called immediately. Flashlights, drones, and dogs were brought to search every corner of the beach. "Where was the last place he was seen?" the inspector asked. "A fisherman saw him near the rocks," one of the staff replied. "Then, he was just gone." No footprints, no scream, no sign of struggle, the inspector said, confused. Almost like he disappeared into thin air. Virain's heart raced. He couldn't believe this was happening. Arav was just playing, a few feet away. How could a child vanish in such a short time? He fell to his knees, holding the red toy boat that had washed ashore. It was broken in half. Arav's name was written on the bottom. Tears filled his eyes. I should have watched him, he whispered. I should have been there. The whole village joined the search. The news channels arrived, and Arav's photo was everywhere. Missing boy, millionaire's son disappears, mysteriously by the sea. Helicopters searched from the sky. Boats searched in the water. But nothing was found. Mira sat in the police tent, crying silently. Every time a wave hit the rocks, she looked up in hope. But it was never him. By midnight, the search had slowed. The inspector spoke gently. Sir, we'll keep searching, but right now there's no sign of him. No, Virain shouted. You don't stop until he's found. I'll pay anything. Just bring my son back. His voice echoed through the dark beach, but deep inside, fear was growing. What if someone had taken Arav? What if he wasn't near the sea at all anymore? The next morning, a boy's sandal was found near a forest trail behind the resort. It was the same sandal Arav wore. Virain rushed to the spot and picked it up. It was wet, covered in sand, and had a small scratch on it like someone had stepped on something sharp. The forest behind the resort was thick and dangerous. Nobody usually went there. The search team quickly changed direction and moved into the trees. Maybe he wandered off, one officer said. No, said Mira, standing beside them. Arav would never go into a forest alone. He's afraid of snakes. So then, someone had taken him. In the forest, they found more clues. A piece of cloth torn on a tree branch and a small wrapper from Arav's favorite candy. Virain held the wrapper in his hand, shaking. He's alive, he said. He's leaving signs. My son is smart. He's trying to tell us where he is. But who took him? And why? Virain had many enemies in business. People who hated his success. People who once trusted him and were left behind. Could this be revenge? Suddenly, the inspector's phone rang. A voice on the other side said just one sentence. You forgot who you destroyed. Now feel that pain yourself. Then the line went dead. The inspector looked at Virain. Someone planned this. This is not just a missing child case. This is a message. Virain's blood ran cold. Someone from his past had returned, and they had his son. That night, Mira couldn't sleep. She held Arav's favorite bedtime book in her lap and stared at the door, hoping he would walk in. Virain sat silently, going through names in his head. Old business partners, fired employees, betrayed friends. And then one name hit him like lightning, Rajat. Years. Ago. Rajat was his best friend and business partner. They built the company together, though Rajat made a mistake. A big one. Virain had him removed from the company and took full control. They never spoke again. But Rajat had once said, You took everything from me, Virain. One day I'll take something from you that money can't buy. Was Rajat behind this? Was this his revenge? Just then, another call came to the inspector. It was from a blocked number. A child's voice could be heard in the background, crying, Papa, I'm scared. Then a man's voice. Do you remember me now, Virain? Virain's heart stopped. It was Rajat, and now he knew. The real nightmare was just beginning. 2 days had passed since Arav went missing. The beach was no longer full of joy. Police officers walked along the sand with serious faces. Tourists whispered and took fewer photos. Locals stared at the sea with fear. Mr. Virain had not eaten or slept properly. His phone kept ringing, calls from the media, his office, his friends. But he didn't answer. His mind was stuck on one question. Where is my son? Every hour that passed made him feel colder inside. He had always solved problems with money, but now his money was useless. That morning, Virain sat in the police station, talking to Inspector Deshmukh. The officer shook his head slowly. We searched the beach, the rocks, even the forest behind the resort. Still no clue. But he didn't drown, Verrain said again. You saw the sea. It was calm that day. And the CCTV. That man in the black raincoat. Yes, the inspector replied. We're checking nearby towns, but so far no one recognizes him. Verrain felt helpless. Then I'll search myself. He stood up, ignoring the inspector's warning, and walked out of the station. By afternoon, Viren was walking through a small village market just a few kilometers from the beach. It was hot. People were selling fruits, clothes, and fish. No one paid attention to the rich man walking in a white shirt with worried eyes. He showed Arav's photo to everyone he passed. Have you seen this boy? Most people shook their heads. Some said no before even looking. Just as he was about to give up and return to the resort, an old woman sitting by a coconut stall called out, I saw him. Verrain stopped. What did you say? I saw that boy. 2 nights ago, she said slowly. His heart skipped a beat. Where? Tell me everything. The woman pointed toward the road that led to the lighthouse. I was walking back from the temple when I saw a black van parked near the old lighthouse. I heard crying. A boy's voice. Did you see his face? No, it was dark, but I heard him say, Papa, before the van drove off. Viren ran to his car and drove straight to the lighthouse. It was an old, abandoned building, standing tall on the cliff. The windows were broken. The door hung loose. It hadn't worked in years. He stepped inside. The air smelled of salt and pieces of wood and paper were scattered on the floor. He turned on his flashlight and looked around. At first he saw nothing, just walls, dust, and silence. Then he froze. On the wall, written in chalk, were 3 words. Help me, Papa. Viren dropped the flashlight. His hands shook, his eyes filled with tears. This was Arav's handwriting. He remembered how Arav had once written the same words in a letter when Verrain left for a long business trip. His son was here. Arav had been in this place. Maybe he still was. Verrain ran out of the lighthouse and called Inspector Deshmukh. I found something. He's alive! He's alive! The inspector arrived within minutes with his team. They searched every room, every corner, every crack in the walls. They found footprints, tiny ones, Arav's size. They also found a wrapper of a chocolate brand that Verrain always gave his son before bed. But that chocolate wasn't sold in the local market. Someone had brought Arav here, fed him, then moved him. But where? That night, Verrain couldn't sleep. He stared at the stars from the resort balcony, remembering his son's smile, his laughter, the way he called him Papa in a soft, loving voice. He never realized how far he had gone from Arav, always busy, always working, always saying, I'll play with you later. Now he was ready to give up everything, his business, his money, his fame. If he could just hold Arav once again. He whispered to the wind, I'll find you, my son, no matter where you are. The old lighthouse stood quietly on the edge of the cliff. Waves crashed below like thunder. Wind howled through broken windows. But inside something was hiding, something that nobody had seen before. That night, after the police had left, Dadu Ram, the old fisherman, returned to the lighthouse. He had seen many storms in his life, but tonight something felt heavier. He had heard whispers from the sea. He believed the sea never took without a reason. He slowly entered the building, holding only a small lantern. As he walked past the main hall, his foot hit something hard. He bent down and brushed away the dust. It was a wooden board, loose, different from the rest of the floor. He pulled it open, and below it a dark hole appeared, a tunnel. The next morning, Dadu Ram called Mr. Viren immediately. There's something under the lighthouse, he said. I think your son may have been kept there. Viren arrived with Inspector Deshmukh and 2 officers. Flashlights in hand, they climbed down into the tunnel. It was narrow and dark. The walls were damp. Cobwebs covered the corners. Each step echoed like a whisper. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Then they found it, a small underground room, a mattress, a broken water bottle, an old toy car, and on the wall, again, those 3 words, written with chalk. Help me. Papa. Viren couldn't hold back his tears. He was here, right here, he whispered. All alone. Inspector Deshmukh knelt and picked up a small torn piece of cloth. It had Arav's name stitched on it. But where is he now? The inspector asked. There was only one path from the room, a narrow doorway leading to another tunnel. Let's follow it, Viren said firmly. The tunnel was long and curved, almost like a maze, but they kept walking. After what felt like hours, they came to an exit behind an abandoned shack in the jungle, 3 kilometers from the lighthouse. The place smelled like smoke and garbage, and there, hidden in the dirt, they found fresh tire marks. Someone had taken Arav from this place. Not long ago, the inspector looked serious. Whoever is doing this, they're watching us. They knew we were close. Back at the resort, Viren sat with Mira. She hadn't spoken much since Arav went missing. Her face looked pale, her hands cold. When Viren told her about the tunnel, she cried for the first time in days. My baby. How scared he must have been, she whispered. I'll find him, Viren said, I promise. Just then a hotel staff member knocked. Sir, there's a man outside who says he knows something about your son. Viren rushed out. A man in dirty clothes stood by the gate. His hands were shaking. I don't want trouble, he said. But I saw something. What? Tell me, Viren begged. I work at the harbor. Late last night I saw a man push a child into a boat. The boy was crying. They had a bag over his head. Viren's heart raced. Did the boat have a name? Yes. I think it was called Sea Rider. It left just before dawn. The inspector turned to Viren. That's a private boat. Belongs to an old smuggler. We've been watching him for months. Without wasting a second, they drove to the harbor. The boat was gone. The man who owned it, Rafik, was known for moving goods illegally across the coast, but now, was he smuggling a child? Viren slammed his hand on the dock railing. They took him again. But then, something floated to shore. A small notebook wrapped in plastic. Arav's name was on the cover. Viren picked it up with shaking hands. Inside were pages of drawings, boats, waves, clouds. And at the very end, one picture stood. Out a small island and a boy standing next to a big red rock. Below it, written in childish handwriting, I dream of Papa finding me here. Viren looked up. The inspector said, that could be an island just off the coast. It's not on the tourist map. Then that's where I'm going, Viren said, no matter what it takes. The sun was rising slowly over the sea. The waves looked calm, but Viren's heart was storming inside. In his hand was the little notebook Arav had written in, and the last drawing showed a lonely island with a red rock. It wasn't just a drawing, it was a clue, a cry for help. Inspector Deshmukh stood beside him at the harbor. We checked the map, he said. There is a small island nearby. Locals call it Chor Tapu, the Thief's Island. It's empty, no people, no houses, even fishermen avoid it. Viren looked out at the sea. Then that's where I'll go. Within an hour, a speedboat was ready. A police team, 2 trained officers, and Viren stepped in. As the boat sliced through the water, the wind hit their faces, and the world behind them slowly disappeared. It took nearly 45 minutes to reach the island. It looked just like the drawing. Dark, rocks, wild trees, and in the middle, a large red-colored rock shaped like a sleeping giant. Everyone stepped out carefully. The island was silent. No birds, no voices. Only the sound of dry leaves under their feet. Viren called out, Arav! But no one answered. They started searching. Behind rocks, through bushes, inside the broken remains of what looked like an old fisherman's hut. One officer pointed, Look, sir, there, hidden behind thick bushes, was a wooden door built into the ground, like a basement or shelter. It had a lock. But it was weak. The officers broke it open. What they saw inside made everyone stop. A small underground room, not even 10 feet wide. There was a dirty blanket, a plastic water bottle, and a toy car. The same car Arav always carried in his pocket. "Sir," an officer whispered. "He was here, maybe still is." Viren stepped inside slowly. "Arav. Arav, it's Papa." No sound, just silence. But then, from behind the wall, a soft knock. Everyone froze. Again, knock, knock. Viren rushed to the wall and started pushing. The officers helped. Behind a loose wooden board, they found a small hidden door. They opened it, and there he was, curled up, shivering, eyes wide with fear. Arav. For a moment, neither father nor son said anything. Then Arav whispered, "Papa." "Is it really you?" Viren ran to him, held him tightly, and cried, "Yes, my son, I'm here. You're safe now. I promise. You'll never be alone again." Arav cried in his father's arms. His small body had bruises. His clothes were torn. "But he was alive. I was so scared," he whispered. "They kept me here. They said no one was coming." "Who?" the inspector asked gently. "Who brought you here?" Arav pointed at the small window of the underground room. "I heard them talk. One man called the other Uncle Rajat." Viren's face turned pale. Rajat was his former business partner, a man who once helped him start his company, but who had been caught stealing money years ago. Viren had fired him and cut all ties, but Rajat had always been angry. Now it made sense. This was never just a kidnapping for money, Viren said. This was revenge. The boat returned with Arav, wrapped in a blanket, sleeping in his father's arms. Viren felt like he could breathe again, but the fight was not over. He looked at Inspector Deshmukh. "We know who did this. Now let's end it." That night, Viren made a public statement on national news. He didn't mention Rajat's name, but he said something powerful. "My son was taken, hidden, and almost lost. But I found him, not because I'm rich, but because I refuse to give up. Whoever did this, I'm coming for you." Rajat, sitting in a dark room watching the news, threw his glass at the TV screen. His plan had failed, but he wasn't done yet. The next morning, Arav woke up in a hospital bed, safe but tired. Viren sat beside him, holding his small hand. Mira, Arav's mother, had tears in her eyes as she ran her fingers through his messy hair. "I thought I lost you," she whispered. Arav looked up weakly and said, "I was waiting for you, Mama. I knew Papa would come." Viren smiled, but inside his heart was burning. He had to find the man who did this. He had to make sure this never happened again. Inspector Deshmukh walked into the room. "We have confirmed the name," he said. "The man who took Arav was your ex-partner, Rajat Malhotra." Viren's face turned serious. "I should have known," he said. "He always hated me after I exposed him." "After you fired him," the inspector added, "he lost everything, his money, his respect, his home. Since then, he's been in hiding. But he didn't forget. And he didn't forgive." The police began a full investigation. They followed Rajat's bank activity, phone records, and secret properties under fake names. Finally, they tracked down an old warehouse outside the city, one of Rajat's last known locations. Viren insisted on coming with the police. "I want to face him," he said. "I want to look him in the eye." They reached the warehouse at midnight. It was dark, silent, and half covered in fog. 6 officers surrounded the building while Viren and Inspector Deshmukh went inside. Suddenly, a loud crash came from inside the hall. Everyone pulled out their torches and rushed in. And there he was. Rajat, standing with a suitcase, trying to escape through the back door. "It's over, Rajat," the inspector shouted. "You're surrounded." Rajat looked around. He knew he had no way out, but still, he laughed. "A rich man like you doesn't deserve love," Rajat said, pointing at Viren. "You took everything from me, so I wanted to take the only thing you loved." Viren stepped forward slowly. "You didn't just take my son," he said. "You tried to break a family. You tried to destroy a child's life. But you failed." Rajat's face turned red with anger. "I failed because you were lucky," he screamed. "But remember this, Viren, your money won't always save you." The officers arrested him and took him away. Back at the hospital, Arav was drawing again. This time it was a happy picture of him, his mother, and his father standing together under the sun. Viren entered the room and knelt beside him. "Arav," he said softly, "I found the man who took you. He's gone now. He can never hurt you again." Arav looked at him and asked, "Why did he hate you so much?" Viren took a deep breath. "Because I did the right thing once," he said. "And sometimes when you do the right thing, bad people get angry." Arav nodded. "But you still did the right thing." Viren smiled. "Always, son, always." Later that week, Viren made a promise. He donated a large amount of money to build a center for missing children, a safe place for kids who were lost, abandoned, or taken. He named it Arav's Hope. The news of the center spread across the country. Many families came forward with stories of their own lost children. Viren stood at the opening ceremony with Arav in his arms. "My son was lucky," he told the cameras, "but many children are not. We must never stop searching. We must never stop caring." As the crowd clapped, Arav whispered in his father's ear, "Papa, can we help those kids too?" Viren hugged him tightly. "We already are, my brave boy." But, far away, in a dark prison cell, Rajat sat quietly, staring at a photo of young Arav. His eyes were still full of hatred. "This isn't over," he muttered. He smiled to himself in the shadows. "I may be behind bars, but I'm not the only one who wanted revenge." It had been 2 weeks since Arav was rescued. He had slowly returned to his playful self. Every evening, he would run around the garden, laugh with his mother, and read bedtime stories with his father. But one evening, while playing outside, Arav saw something that made him stop. Across the road, behind the trees, a man in a dark coat stood watching their house. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just watched. Arav stepped back, frightened. When he blinked, the man was gone. That night, Arav told his father, "I saw someone outside. He looked angry." Viren stood up immediately. His instincts kicked in. He checked all the security cameras and called the guard, but the footage showed nothing. "Maybe it was just your imagination," Mira said softly, trying to calm Arav. But deep inside, Viren felt something wasn't right. The next morning, Inspector Deshmukh came to the house with news. "Rajat is in jail," but while checking his visitor logs, we found something strange. "A man named Bhavesh visited him 4 times. "Bhavesh?" Viren asked. "I don't know him. He was once Rajat's assistant," the inspector replied. "Quiet, loyal, and dangerous." Viren remembered now. A silent man who always followed Rajat, never spoke much. He had disappeared after the business ended. Inspector Deshmukh's face was serious. "We believe Bhavesh is now watching you, possibly planning something worse." That evening, security around the mansion was doubled. Police guards stood near the gate. Extra cameras were installed. But still, Viren could not sleep. Why was this man after him? Why couldn't he just live in peace with his family? The next day, a letter was found on their doorstep. No envelope, no name, just a piece of paper. "You saved your son once, let's see if you can do it again." Viren's hands turned cold as he read it. Mira held Arav tightly, tears welling in her eyes. Inspector Deshmukh looked at the letter and nodded. "He's testing you. He wants to scare you." "But why?" Mira cried. "What did Arav do?" "Nothing." Viren said, "They're not after Arav, they're after me." That night, Viren made a choice. He wouldn't wait for another attack. He had to end this. Now. He worked with the police to track Bhavesh's last location through phone signals and card usage. Finally, they traced him to a rented flat just outside the city. Viren said, "Let me come with you. I want this to end. With my own eyes." Inspector Deshmukh agreed. They reached the flat just after midnight. The police quietly surrounded the building while Viren and the inspector entered from the back. The door was slightly open. Inside, Bhavesh was sitting on a chair, staring at a photo of Arav. The walls were covered in news articles and about Viren, about Arav's kidnapping, and about Rajat's arrest. Bhavesh didn't even move when they entered. "I knew you'd come," he said. Viren stepped forward. "Why are you doing this? What do you want?" Bhavesh looked up slowly. "I want justice," he whispered. "You destroyed Rajat's life. He gave you everything in the beginning, and you threw him away like trash." "He stole from me," Viren replied. "He betrayed our trust." Bhavesh stood up, eyes full of fire. "He was my only family. I'll destroy yours the same way you destroyed mine." The officers moved in quickly and handcuffed Bhavesh, but he just laughed. "You think this is over? There will always be people like me. People who hate men like you." Back at the mansion, Arav ran into his father's arms. "Is it done now, Papa?" he asked. Viren hugged him tight. "Yes, son, it's done. You're safe now." For the first time in weeks, the family sat together for dinner without fear in their hearts. The house was calm. The sea outside was peaceful, and Arav, the brave little boy, finally slept peacefully in his bed. In the months that followed, Arav's hope. Center helped rescue more than 50 missing children. Many families were reunited thanks to Viren's efforts. Viren gave interviews not as a businessman, but as a father who learned the value of family over money. In one TV interview, the host asked, "What would you say to parents who are too busy making money?" Viren looked at the camera and said, "Money can buy comfort, but it can't buy time with your child. One moment of loss can destroy your entire world. Don't wait. Hold your child today." The story of Arav's rescue, the revenge of Rajat and Bhavesh, and the creation of Arav's hope became a national story. But for Viren, only one thing mattered. Every time he looked at Arav's smile, he whispered, "You came back to me, and now I'll never let you go."